Hello gorgeous, welcome back. How are you? I'm going to be completely transparent in this video. I feel awful. I feel absolutely disgusting. For those who don't know, I have a few health conditions that kind of combine together to give me something that I call pain episodes. And they are not a fun time, and I got hit with one about 20 minutes ago and it's still ongoing, but I didn't want this video and this set of notes and this amount of research that I've put into this video just to collect dust. So suck it up, buttercup. We're gonna get through this video together, and I just hope that by the end of it I feel better, and I hope that this video still turns out great and that you still at least gain something from it, whether it's entertainment or perspective or understanding or whatever. Should I be taking a break? Probably. Am I gonna take a break? Absolutely not, because I don't want all of the effort that I've gone to when it comes to this video to go to absolute waste. So we're gonna get through this together and hopefully have a fun time, because the noodle king himself, Nikocado Avocado, has been really gaining some traction over the last week. Recently, Nikocado Avocado has been absolutely flooding YouTube due to his recent disability. According to a number of Nick's videos, his weight has actually gotten to the point in which he has broken ribs as a result. He is now bedridden as a result of that, and he has also developed sleep apnea. The tea, drama, and commentary community has not hesitated when it's come to voicing their opinions, but also voicing their concern for Nick, but most of this commentary has been met with quite a lot of bratty tantrums from Nick. Because to the masses, including myself, it seems as though Nikocado Avocado is actually monetizing his fatal demise. And if this is the case, why is YouTube not stepping in? Disclaimer and content warning: in this video, as I have already specified, I will be discussing Nikocado Avocado and his recent content. Because of this, I will have discussions of eating and humiliation fetishes, eating disorders, mental health disorders, and suicide. If you find any of these topics potentially triggering, please proceed with caution or consider clicking off of the video altogether, because at the end of the day, I do not want my content to jeopardize your mental health, jeopardize your well-being, but I also don't want it to jeopardize Nick's. I say this in almost all of my videos, and even though I do trust every single one of you, looking at the response that commentary channels audiences have had on Nick's videos, I feel as though I need to make this even clearer and even more obvious than usual. I do not promote, encourage, or endorse any kind of mean, negative, harassing, malicious behavior. My videos are strictly for entertainment purposes only, so I do not want for any kind of mean, negative, harassing, malicious behavior to go out there into the world to go towards Nick because of something that I've said or on my behalf. We are of course allowed to keep it cheeky, we're allowed to keep it messy, and we're allowed to keep it fun, but please keep it to this channel and this commentary section only. Comment section only. With all of that said, let's get on to why YouTube has not yet stepped in. Now, if you're like me, you have definitely had the name Nikocado Avocado float around your recommended for quite a number of years, and very much quite recently. Either one of his videos, a video made on him, or a video that has briefly mentioned him. But you have not yet had the displeasure of deep diving into the lore of who Nikocado Avocado truly is. I would 100% recommend watching the Right Opinions mammoth effort of a deep dive into Nick posted August last year, titled The Never-Ending Nightmare of Nikocado Avocado, From Vegan to Villain, where TRO and all of the editing legends that worked on the video documented incredibly the consistent toxic characterization of Nikocado Avocado and summarized the volatile Nikocado Avocado timeline between Nick's online origins to the James Marriott situation last year. But to summarize the 4-hour and 36-minute mammoth effort of a deep dive by TRO and all of the editing legends, a brief summary of who Nikocado Avocado is. Nikocado Avocado originally joined YouTube in 2014 and originally posted vegan and raw vegan content and at times mukbangs, which dope, love that for Nick, but a lot of this content is actually increasingly difficult to find, as close to all of this content has been deleted off of the 6 channels that Nick uploads to personally, but some clips can be found on All and Home, which is Nick's husband's mukbang channel. The person that we see and hear in these videos is seemingly incredibly different to who we know as Nikocado Avocado today. Where this all really started to change was September 2nd of 2016, when Nick uploaded to his main channel Why I'm No Longer a Vegan YouTuber. In this video, he explains that he is still a vegan and will still make the mukbang content, but will not be outrightly expressing that he is a vegan and that his content is vegan, because the vegan community is too toxic and drama-filled for him to be a part of anymore. So seemingly wildly different to the mukbang Nick that we all know today. And this is exactly what Nick did. He made a few videos and mukbangs where the recipes were vegan, but he didn't advertise them as vegan. Instead said healthy alternatives and dairy-free when it came to his mac and cheese recipe. Which dope. If it wasn't for all of my other allergies that I have, I would be eating that mac and cheese, because she did look, ooh! She looked all kinds of tasty, but eventually this changed and Nick decided to no longer be vegan. And as Nick was no longer vegan, his mukbangs in turn included more meaty products and had a lot more food options. This is one part of the Nikocado story that had me absolutely fascinated, because I could see quite a lot of self-awareness in Nick when it came to discussing his vegan days in a mukbang that he posted on his More Nikocado channel. That was a lot of words. In the video of reacting to my vegan days part 1, he sheds a tear and expresses the danger that his health is suffering now, but also back then. He expresses quite openly that he is walking a line with his health right now, but back then he was still walking a dangerous line, just on a different side of the conversation, which I think is an incredibly important conversation to have, but alas, these videos get more views. And this is a bit of a running theme throughout Nick's channel by the looks of it. The quest for views, and this comes at the expense of himself, but also the expense of others. As TRO highlights in their expose on Nick, Nick has a cycle that he has constantly worked through over his years on YouTube. He is a part of something, he leaves, he attacks it, he moves on. But where his character becomes concerning is how he attacks. Either cherry picking his arguments that work in his favor while ignoring his own flaws or what he could have done better to stop the situation from reaching this point, or just manipulating and misrepresenting information and evidence to support his narrative. Nick hasn't always been in the wrong and at times has made some incredible points, but unfortunately, watching a lot of Nikocado's personal content and content made about Nikocado Avocado, personally, I don't believe that the intent of the valid points that Nick brings up in all of his expose videos is in pursuit of what is right. Personally, I think that the intent is views. For example, Trisha Paytas is an easy target. Using their already trash credibility to dogpile onto it more to increase your own credibility is, as I have said before, some supervillain origin level shit. This brief summary is what is between the lines. The character at the forefront of all of Nick's videos is an adult throwing a tantrum and eating. And I say character because even though Nick has specified that Nick on camera at the moment is the real deal and not a character, we have seen the many phases and many faces of Nick over the years, and at one point he announced simply the goodbye to his internet troll character. Sometimes old habits die hard, and after all of my research into Nick himself and his history on the internet, I don't trust him and I am very cautious of the information that he presents in his videos. But why all of a sudden is everyone talking about him? According to Nick in some of his videos, even though he identifies as skinny, he has eaten himself into such a level of obesity that his ribs have broken, and because of this he is now bedridden, and he is making quite a few videos with the titles "My Diet as a Disabled Person." This level of self-harm was quite alarming to quite a few on YouTube, and I would say relatively respectful commentary channels have voiced their concerns in the hopes to educate people and to educate Nick. What I'm gonna say next, people are gonna roast me for, but from what I can tell, Penguins was one of the most influential channels sub and view wise to cover the recent concern for Nick's plummeting health. And the sweet bean not wanting to be a part of the drama years ago Nick, to using anything and everything for clicks and views no matter who it might insult Nick, has been milking it. I watched Penguins videos on Nick, and yes, the imagery that Penguins paints with his words when it comes to Nick's content is dense and incredibly off-putting. But also the points he made in his videos I don't think were wrong. And in the moments where Penguins' points have been misinterpreted by Nick, Penguins clarifies his points in a response video. Overall, I think that the videos Penguins did were fine and had good points, and Nick is just milking it for all it's worth. Which, hey, views are currency, and I am guessing Nick just wants to get paid. But personally, watching all of the videos that Nick has made on Penguins, and just over the last 2 weeks really, I definitely feel as though Nick has found a new cash cow, and as I said before, he is milking it for all it is worth. So to summarize, Nick has had a history of toxic, manipulative behavior for years, to his communities and to people specifically within those communities, and will use whatever is given for views and for money. From all of Nick's content, personally, it is very obvious how money motivated Nick is. Over the years, Nick has had a lot of drama and controversies that he has been a part of. In some of these moments, he has had good points, and a lot of them he has manipulated extensively by toxic cherry picking or misrepresenting evidence and information, and at times intentionally troll the internet and people on the internet. According to Nick in some of his videos, his weight has gotten to the point in which he has broken ribs because of it, he is now bedridden because of his ribs, and he has also developed sleep apnea. And unsurprisingly, a lot of people are concerned, but not just because of his weight, because a lot of the internet are finding that Nick is just using his ribs and bedriddenness as a way to bring more views in. Seemingly, Nick is possibly trolling people's concern with his mukbang content of late with his complete disregard for his own health and self-preservation, and people want him deplatformed. So why isn't YouTube stepping in? Because that brief summary of Nick and his history on YouTube is as simple as I can possibly put it without making a 4-hour and 36-minute video on Nick, especially with everything that has happened recently. And for me personally, I think it's quite obvious how someone like Nick could be potentially dangerous with such a substantial platform when he chooses to be. If he chooses to not be dangerous, then we're fine. But if he chooses to be dangerous, then it's not like we didn't know, so why hasn't YouTube stepped in? And objectively, I'm not sure if they can. Looking into Nick's content and the theories around Nick's content, whether it is the intention or not, because I cannot prove if it is the intention, regardless, it is the effect. Nick's content is potentially breaking 3 of YouTube's community guidelines, being nudity and sexual content, suicide and self-injury, and finally harmful and dangerous content, because under that falls eating disorders. Let's start with nudity and sexual content policies. According to YouTube's community guidelines, you cannot post pornography or depicting sexual acts, genitals, or fetishes for the purpose of sexual gratification on any surface, brackets such as video, text, audio, and images, close brackets. Nick hasn't outrightly said it, but with the extravagant performance and gluttonous display in each of his videos, his content does potentially, unintentionally fall into the feeding and humiliation fetishes. I have no concrete evidence to suggest that Nick is intentionally making mukbang content for the purposes of sexual gratification. It is just a theory, a hypothesis that I've seen in a number of comments. So legally, I have to say potentially, unintentionally. So this is not fact, it is just a theory. Feeding and humiliation fetishes are pretty self-explanatory from what I've been able to research, but feederism, to be put very, very simply, is when sexual gratification is received in the act of weight gaining by the gainer and encourager. Humiliation fetish, to be put very simply, is someone is humiliated and then sexual gratification is either gained through the humiliation or observing the humiliation. With the amount of food being consumed by Nick, with the very obvious weight gain, but also the striking contrast between the soft-spoken intellectual and the tantrum-throwing drama queen, I can see where this theory has emerged. So seeing as Nick's content is potentially falling into this category, why is YouTube not doing anything? From what I can tell from my understanding, it's as simple as, where do we draw the line? At what point does YouTube say that is too much food, that is too much food being made in a video, that is too much food being eaten in a video, that is too often that this channel is posting videos where they are making and eating food? And also, how do you even regulate humiliation? At what point do you say that is too embarrassing? Because in doing so, they are potentially screwing over other creators that are making food-related content not for sexual gratification purposes. Also, this fetish theory is just a theory, it isn't a fact. But with all of the policies that Nick is potentially breaking that I am going to be highlighting in this video, it all simply boils down to, where should the cutoff be? How much is too much? Under the harmful acts policy, YouTube specifies eating disorders, content that praises, glorifies, or encourages viewers to imitate anorexia or other eating disorders. Eating disorders are characterized by abnormal or disturbed eating habits which negatively affect a person's health, including eating non-food items. The eating disorder that the internet has collaboratively attributed to Nikocado Avocado and essentially just diagnosed him with is binge eating disorder, which, to be put simply, is binge eating disorder is characterized by repeated episodes of uncontrolled intake of unusually large amounts of food in a short period of time. These episodes are accompanied by feelings of guilt, shame, and psychological distress. Nikocado's content across 6 separate channels, whether intentional or not, is multiple videos a week on these separate channels with buffets of thousands of calories in front of him, where he, yes, has his moments of toddler-like emotional eruptions, but for the most part indulges happily in the food. Don't know if you know this, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a psychologist. I cannot diagnose anyone with binge eating disorder. But is the eating habits that Nick frames and highlights in his videos disordered? Yes. Therefore abnormal and disturbed? Yes. Are they affecting his health? Yes. He has even specified it in his videos. Is he at times glorifying this eating? Yes, maybe not all of the time, but that doesn't really matter. It's Nick's channel, it's Nick's content, and he is an adult with autonomy. So therefore, if he wanted, he could frame the food differently. He could make the food differently, and he could change his schedule quite easily. He could make his eating on his channel less abnormal and less disturbed. But he hasn't, and I can only assume that for whatever reason, It's because he doesn't want to. Why YouTube possibly isn't stepping in is because, once again, at what point does YouTube regulate how much food is too much? By putting in their policies this outline of how much food is too much, YouTube would be alienating a lot of creators that would not be, for lack of better phrasing, glorifying eating disorders and glorifying specifically binge eating disorder. But also, by terminating his channel due to a consistent display of abnormal and disturbed eating, they would be potentially diagnosing Nick with binge eating disorder, which diagnosing anyone with any illness without grounds is incredibly dangerous, especially with eating disorders. And as I have said plenty of times on this channel, a creator's content is just a window into their lives. They themselves get to pick how big or how small that window is, and regardless of the size, we the audience will never truly know what the inside of their house looks like. Nick has specified in videos and shown it off in the title and thumbnail and blamed it on the amount that he eats, which he blames on his viewers, that his weight that was gained via the amount of food that he consumes has caused him to be disabled, has caused him to break bones, specifically his ribs. From the amount of information that Nick himself puts into videos, he has documented his slow decline in his health over the years, even specifying in his video reacting to his vegan self part 1 that he was walking a fine line with his health back then. He is today, but both for different reasons. I want to make this clear, I will never look back at Nick's younger vegan self and think that that is healthier, because fact is, from Nick's recounting of his eating habits over the years, he was malnourished back then and he was starving. Skinny does not automatically mean healthy, and from what Nick has said, his younger vegan self was also incredibly unhealthy, just for different reasons. But as I was saying, Nick was definitely alluding to the fact that he was playing with his health in this video. This video was posted September last year. In the space of a year, Nick has gone from this video to making 10 videos in the last 2 weeks on more Nikocado, specifying that he is disabled in the title, wearing a sleep apnea machine in the thumbnail, and then has an incredibly indulgent mukbang in the video. Nick is harming himself. The Nikocado that Nikocado is choosing to show in these videos is harming himself. His choice of weapon is food. Will this eventually kill him? Yes. Is he trying to squeeze every last possible coin out of it? Yes, Nikocado Avocado is monetizing his own fatal demise, so why is YouTube not stepping in? Great question. Once again, I think it comes down to, at what point does YouTube say this is the line in the sand? At what point does YouTube say you're too fat and you're too skinny, especially if Nikocado Avocado does actually follow through on the promises that he is going on a weight loss journey ASAP? At what point is the food being consumed on camera self-harm? Personally, I think that YouTube is in a really tough, not impossible, but really tough situation when it comes to possibly deplatforming Nick, because in order to deplatform him in the most constructive way, in my personal opinion, they need to adjust their policies. But when it comes to adjusting their policies, at what point do we say that's enough? Especially because recovery content can be incredibly constructive and can be incredibly helpful to an individual or a community. So to put in your policy something that could alienate that kind of content, you end up doing a lot more harm than good. So I don't think it's impossible. I think it's incredibly tough, and I think it is something that YouTube should look into, but I think they need to look into doing it the correct way, because I think alienating recovery content is a very dangerous game. But wildly and concerningly, this story isn't just Nick. Nick isn't the only creator, in my subjective opinion, to continually break YouTube policies, but time and time again, it's ignored. But for Nick specifically, what is potentially the reason? Personally, I think it would be an absolute pain in the ass to try and have Nick deplatformed. This man is not going to be removed from the platform silently. So I don't necessarily think it's a done and dusted kind of situation. Especially because with the policies that YouTube has set out, there is a lot of wiggle room for someone as historically cherry-picking and manipulative as Nick to use to get back onto the platform. I think it would possibly have to be a situation of YouTube having to tighten their policies in regards to YouTube's community guidelines around nudity and sexual content, suicide and self-injury, and harmful and dangerous content. Because if Nick can potentially manipulate and cherry-pick the policies, then anyone can. And unfortunately for these policies specifically, the wording of them would have to be incredibly specific. Otherwise, there is the potential that, as I said before, we could lose recovery content but also cooking content. And policy changes like this don't just happen overnight, and they really shouldn't just happen overnight. In my personal opinion, I think that YouTube can deplatform Nick. In my personal opinion, I think that they should, because whether it's intentional or not, his content can be harmful, and whether it's intentional or not, his content has broken community guidelines. More than once. More than 3 times. And as YouTube goes, 3 strikes, you're out. Is that something that can happen in an instant? Is that something that can happen overnight? Yes. Is that something that should happen in an instant? Is that something that should happen overnight? I can't really say, because one, my subjective opinion is not going to determine the outcome, and two, I don't have all of the information. I don't even have all of the necessary information to make an informed, constructive opinion. I would either need to be behind the scenes in Nick's life, or I would have to be in the business, marketing, policy sides of YouTube, and fact of the matter is, I am not. But one opinion that I've seen floating around quite frequently is that the Nick that Nick is showing on camera is a character, that it's all for show, that it's all an act. Is this true? I don't know. Is this false? I don't know. But say that this opinion is true. Say that this is all an act. Say that this is a character. Say that this is all for show. And Nikocado is still pushing this narrative and making an easily accessible, safe place for behavior that is harming, self-injuring, and can cause death. And he has made a step-by-step guide with every video that he posts. Just because hypothetically he isn't that off camera doesn't matter, because he is making an easily accessible, safe place for this behavior and for people that encourage this behavior. If I made anti-vax content, it is pretty safe to assume that my audience would share the thoughts and opinions that I put on camera that are harmful and dangerous to the public. If I made that anti-vax content, but in real life was not anti-vax, that doesn't matter, because I, with my content, have still made an easily accessible, safe place for anti-vaxxers. A safe place where they could share their stories, their experience, their argument points, and their evidence to support their claims. And if that wasn't disgusting enough, I would be profiting off of it. For context, 2 weeks ago I had my second shot of the Astro Boy. So in my personal opinion, if your online persona, unless it is very obvious and within reason that it is satirical or parody, if your online persona is damaging and creates damaging content and therefore creates an easily accessible, safe place for people who share this damaging behavior or damaging opinions, and you are profiting off of it, then it doesn't matter who you are off camera. You are trash that is willing to do anything for $1. So if this is a character of Nick's, he is still filming, editing, and uploading damaging, harmful behavior, which has created an easily accessible, safe space for people who partake in this damaging, harmful behavior, and he profits off of it. If YouTube was to turn around and say, oh, well, we know him off camera and this just isn't it, I would, one, be concerned for the platform, but two, I would be a little bit shocked. Nothing really shocks me anymore, but I would still have a tiny little crease in the bridge of my nose. Ultimately, Nikocado Avocado has had a history of toxic manipulative behavior, and as for his credibility with me personally, he has very little. Nick has expressed on various occasions that his health is in danger, with his recent videos highlighting his recent disability due to his weight gain in the title and in the thumbnail. His disability being a point of conversation in the video, for the video itself to be a very indulgent mukbang, I think lacks a lot of self-respect, is potentially harmful, and is potentially dangerous. Whether it's a character or not, whether it's all an act or not, whether it's all for show or not, to me personally it doesn't matter, because it is still as damaging nonetheless. And personally, yes, I think that YouTube should be stepping in. I genuinely hope that YouTube is doing something and we just haven't seen it in action yet. We haven't seen the results of it yet. Because as I said before, policy changes, or at least tightening the policies that they already have, doesn't happen overnight constructively. But regardless, I hope that YouTube has stepped in, is stepping in, or is to step in very, very soon to deal with their rogue mukbanger. And even though my trust in Nikocado's words is very, 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 very little, I genuinely hope that he is being truthful when he specifies that he is going to be having a health journey soon on YouTube, specifically on his More Nikocado channel. I genuinely hope that Nick does finally find a healthy balance in his diet, because with all of the content that I've now watched on Nick and from Nick, I don't think he's ever had a healthy relationship with food. And with all of that said, I think that's all of my thoughts and opinions in this video. This is another one of those videos where the situation that I'm discussing is so complex, there's so many different ifs, buts, and ands, and there is no concrete resolution at this point in time, and in all honesty, I don't think there's going to be. Genuinely, I hope that there is going to be a constructive resolution to all of the fuckery that is going on this platform, because if nothing happens, I'm afraid that it's just going to get worse, because as creators, we're always trying to outdo our last performance, because we are only as good as our last video. Either way, I'm exhausted. Please let me know down in the comments all of your thoughts and opinions when it comes to this situation and on this video, because your girl, she likes to learn. I have holes in my Swiss cheese brain, and one of the best ways that I can fill all of these little holes in my knowledge is to read your comments, to read your thoughts and opinions. Reading other people's thoughts, opinions, and experiences is one of the best ways that you can learn in this world, and I genuinely read every single one of my comments because of this. But also, please let me know down in the comments below what you want me to talk about, because I know what I want me to talk about, but I won't know what you want me to talk about unless you tell me, because even though I'd love to be, Fun fact, I'm not a mind reader. I think it'd be super handy if I was, but I'm just not. It is what it is. And finally, thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to here, because once again, people love it when I say this. I have 4 hours and 17 minutes worth of microphone footage. Oh, I've got to edit this. I might take a nap first though. I have almost 4 hours and 20 minutes worth of footage, so I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but typically my videos are on the longer side of things when it comes to YouTube. So thank you so much for donating to me your precious, precious time, and I hope that you are just having a fantastic day, fantastic week, fantastic month, fantastic year, and I hope that you are doing as fantastic as always. Bye everyone.